How are you, Trevor?
I'm doing excellent. How are you doing?
I'm fine. I'm fine. Where are you? Where are you in the world?
I'm at home in Idaho. Actually, there's a snowstorm rolling in right now. I had to pull in the trash cans because everything's blowing away.
Oh, really?
There's a full blizzard.
Have you always lived in Idaho?
I have since I was about 3. I was born in San Diego, and my family moved to Idaho when I was I think 2.5, and I've been here ever since. Like most people, I definitely went through a season where I was wanting to get out, but that was right before I had started the Youth Lagoon project. And when that had started, and so much chaos entered my life in terms of touring and always leaving home, then home became the perfect and necessary balance for what my life needed. And now that I have that balance, I'm really in love with it.
You mean balance, like having a life outside music, like having a quiet space?
Yeah,
In
I mostly mean balance in terms of having when I'm in when I'm in touring mode, or I leave town all the time. I travel a lot. And so there's a lot of chaos in my life. Beautiful chaos, but still chaos. And so it's really necessary for me to have the time at home to disappear and recharge my battery and find my center.
Sure, I bet. And is Idaho has Idaho always been this inspiring place, or do you find like the spaces you're in have something of I don't know, that they transmit you something? Have you ever thought like, oh, I'm glad I'm in Idaho because I've never had this experience which detonated this idea?
It it didn't used to inspire
Happened
me
to
to the
you?
same degree, mostly because I wasn't paying attention. Something had woken me up to the fact that what is happening on my street, in my neighborhood, in my immediate world is the most interesting and obviously most personal story to tell. And that had started when I began prioritizing more stillness in my life. For years, I had fallen into the trap that so many people do, where it was all about the act of doing. What can be on my calendar? What can I do? What can I pursue? And that stuff is obviously there's a time and a place to do, but I really, as of about 2.5, 3 years ago, I really started craving and falling in love with the act of being. And the more that I practice being and stillness in my life, the more it's shown me what I need to be paying attention to and what kind of inspiration is all around me when I really put up the microscope, the magnifying glass to my own personal existence.
Yeah, yeah. I think, I mean, you lived through the life before the internet, right? Before it was omnipresent in each of our lives. I mean,
Yeah,
I lived it too, but I lived also the life without cell phones, without smartphones, without always having to pay attention to this little square rectangle that we have always now. And
yeah,
and I bet that that omnipresence of the internet, or that omnipresence of I don't know, being always doing something, in a way has changed the way you approach music. Has it changed?
yeah, for sure. Well, because like what you said, and I see it as it is such a gift to have been able to experience that that level of growing up, there was no internet. People didn't have there not every household even had a computer. And if you did have a computer, it wasn't access to all the information that mankind currently has. It was a much more limited thing. And so coming from that background, and even when I got my first phone, I didn't get my first phone until I had started touring under the Youth Lagoon moniker. So I was like 22 when I got my first cell phone, which is wild to think about now because I resisted that for so long. And then it ended up becoming, in a lot of ways, it became a necessity. But I never lost grip of that the only thing that really matters is this moment here, the here and the now, and what the world and especially with the state of the internet, how it all functions. It's all distraction. It's all complete distraction.
Yeah, totally, totally. And in 2018, 2020, you started using like your name as a moniker, Trevor Powers.
Yeah.
What would you say is the difference between releasing music as Trevor Powers and Youth Lagoon, or what? Why did you thought that those two records you made in 2019 and 2020 didn't didn't deserve or didn't quite? I don't know. Why didn't you put the Youth Lagoon moniker on them, and instead you chose to name them by by your name?
Yeah, I went through this when I had killed off the Youth Lagoon moniker in 2016. That all came back to this massive lack of clarity that I had in my own personal life. I felt really directionless. I felt really uninspired. I felt really, talking about the present moment. I wasn't in the present moment at all. There was complete turmoil in my life. My anxiety was at an all time high. So I had just lost that internal balance and frequency. That healthy wavelength was gone. And so when I killed off the moniker, I never had any intention to do anything with it again. It was almost like a rebellion against my sense of self, which makes it ironic that I started releasing albums under my own name. But it was such a necessary period of growth for me because it also allowed me to press the pause button on something that had the eyes and the attention of others, because Youth Lagoon had gained, there was people paying attention, so it felt good to be able to have a little more privacy and make a couple records that felt like an exercise in my own personal growth and evolution, stretching myself, evolving, seeing what other corners of my brain need more work than others.
Yeah.
And what had happened was when I had two albums come out. There was Mulberry Violence, which was 2018, and an album called Capricorn, which I'm incredibly proud of both of those albums. Capricorn came out in 2020, and Capricorn was much more of an ambient, almost new age record, and so proud of those. But what had happened was those ended up being a catalyst for me finding a new sense of inner peace, and um, it that correlated at the same time as me going through some serious health issues and having my body feel like it was completely destroyed. But there was a paradox there, because the more destroyed my body felt, the more awake and alive my spirit felt. And I used that pain to become my teacher, and really steered into what it was trying to say to me. And in all that, Youth Lagoon ended up becoming something that came full circle, because the more awake my spirit felt, and the more clarity that came with it, I knew exactly what to do with the project. And now I can't keep up. Now there's so many ideas that feel like it feels like planes just flying over me constantly, dropping these ideas in my backyard. And then, it's still work to go pick them up, but I don't have to go. It's Songwriting for me now it's not about the act of trying. It's just about the act of listening to that great mystery inside of me.
Oh wow, wow. Do you feel I've talked to a couple of musicians, artists, and a lot of them say to me that sometimes they feel like they're like an antenna for the ideas that come
Mm-hmm.
up. Do you feel that way? Do you feel like you're like this antenna that just transmits what's in, I don't know, in another plane or in the ether or whatever you want to
Yeah,
call it?
totally. Complete. That's completely it. Because the more that if I start writing a song and I have a specific intention in mind of I'm gonna write this kind of song, and I have fill in whatever blank that is. It's like, okay, I'm going to do this thing. It never goes according to plan. It always turns out to be a complete disaster. Whereas when I steer more into the stillness and letting ideas themselves bubble up, and then I just show up and gather those ideas off the top of the surface, there's naturally so much more purity there because nothing is being forced. So it really does feel like these ideas come from some bizarre ether, some alternate weirdo dimension, and they're passing through this dimension, and so it's my job to honor those ideas and really stay in tune with that dimension so that I can translate it
I
in
bet.
all that too. It's always teaching me things, because often if I'm writing a song, I don't necessarily even consciously know what it is that song means, or the importance of, or the importance of what it is or what it's trying to teach me, until something is completely finished, and then I go back and look at what the piece is. And so often it's something that my own subconscious, that deep core, that deep seed of my spirit is trying to teach me, which is such a weird thought, that it's almost like communication, not only with another dimension, but it feels like communication with myself in another dimension.
Oh wow. Yeah, yeah. And what was in this exercise of being present or of being? Do you remember like what was the first song you composed for this new record? Do you have that memory?
It started off as a couple different sketches, and there was always that, with me talking about the subconscious and things bubbling up, that is always, it's something that feels really intangible, and it feels very based around dream logic, and if it stays in that realm, then nothing is tangible or digestible enough for a listener. So that's why it's so important for me to go through, if I have sketches and something is just in the dream logic realm, and I don't go into to shape it and to mold it into something that's a little more understandable or communicative, then it's meaningless. That being said, I think one of the first sketches that I wrote for the album was the final track, which is Home Movies 1989 to 1993. That was a massive portal into what the album's core and identity was and is. And that was why I wanted to put that song at the end of the album, because there was something about it that makes it, it was the beginning and it was the end. It was the without that song, nothing else would exist before it.
Is the well, obviously, I bet that the name Home Movies 1989 through 1993 is referencing to the actual home movies that you found somewhere, or
Yeah,
I
so
think.
I had dug up some home movies at my parents' house. I was over at their house, and I saw this box of all these home movies, And I grew up in a house where my parents always had the camcorder out. They were filming everything. But what was funny about it is no one ever watched the tapes. There wasn't a single person in my family that had ever actually seen the tapes. So I had taken them home and started watching them, and it was at the same time as me working on some of these sketches. And what was happening is when I was playing them, I had this old CRT TV. When I was playing them on the TV while I was working on music, the audio from the tapes not only felt inseparable from the music, but it was there was something about what was going on in that realm of family archive that was pushing the music in new ways. And so I knew pretty quick, I think within the first day or two of taking home the tapes and watching them, it was pretty clear that there was not only something there, but it became an obsession for me to start sampling the tapes, manipulating the audio, having it be this, even down to the texture of the way that the mechanics of the TV were sounding, and steering into that, while at the same time recognizing that this isn't something, with the album, with Rarely Do I Dream, this isn't something that is stuck in the past at all. It's not something that's based in nostalgia. It's using tools from the past to make sense of, and um, to wrestle with, and to basically like help bring myself and the spirit of these songs into the present dimension.
Oh
and
wow.
and dealing with time, I love themes of time, because the more that I zoom in on time, whether it be the past or present, or exercises in, like things that feel kind of synthesizers that feel space age, or whatever, is the more that I can play with those ideas of time and put them all together. It has this weird, magical, supernatural feeling of it existing outside of time, and existing in its own atmosphere. That's what I love so much about music, is same with lyrics, is if I zoom in so much on autobiography, how do I take that headspace and combine it with how far can I zoom in on fiction, and creating my own folk tales and mythologies, and take both of those to the extreme dimensions and put them together, so it's basically extreme truth and extreme untruth. But there's something about that feels the most like reality, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, totally. I always have thought that even though our senses can really comprehend it or perceive it in that way, that time isn't linear. Like
Yeah.
we live in future and present and past like all together, and that sometimes all those times have like aligned, and we feel the past and the present and the future all at the same time. And I feel like that's kind of the gut feeling, maybe sometimes, like perceiving the future, or I don't
Yeah.
know, kind of
No,
like
I'm right there with you. I completely agree. You're speaking my language. That's
that. Yeah,
because
time
there
time is weird.
it is, and it's non-existent. Like we put it into this box because our personal experience is in our childhood memories and all that, where it's like, okay, I used to be this person, and I lived in this house, and now I'm this person, and I drive this car and live in this house. And even down to personal identity, where it's like, my name's Trevor, and I wear these clothes and listen to this music and watch these movies. That's not who I really am. That's me experiencing this body, experiencing this humanness. But the truth of the matter is we are so much more beautiful and so much deeper than these beings that we're presenting as.
Totally. Yeah, yeah. I hope so. And but I bet that like in an exercise like the one you did with the home movies and making music at the same time, I bet it was hard to like knowing when to finish, like when knowing when to finish a song, knowing when to finish like watching all these movies that I bet like what was it, like 4 years worth of movies or home movies. I bet it took a lot of time and a lot of like
It did. It did. And I had even
Just
more.
song.
I sorry, the phone cut out for a second. Um,
Oh,
I had even more tapes than that to play with too, because with home movies 1989 to 1993, I was working within those limitations. But throughout the course of the album, I there were all kinds of other tapes I was finding at my parents' house after the fact too, where it would be like more 8 millimeter tapes, more VHS, all of these pieces of family archive, and the way that I was able to, I found the initial box, and then my mom would hit me up maybe like a month or two later, being like, "Hey, I found another tape. Do you want to come over and grab it?" And so it was this slow unraveling of, oh, here's some more ammunition to work with. But in regard to your question of if it was hard to know when to wrap up the ideas, it weirdly wasn't. There was something about, and that's more of an instinctual thing. There was something about just listening to when something felt complete, when I felt like each song did exactly what it was supposed to do. Then I closed it and I moved on, and I've been working so much on not over questioning myself, but just being in tune with, if something is effective or it feels like the my inner world in that specific moment and it's complete, then I move on. And it's that has taken years to get to that point, but I think I've honed it in pretty well.
well, I bet that after making music for more than a decade, that must be like a second nature to you, right?
Yeah, because it is based on feeling. It helps that I don't have much familiarity with music theory. I know just enough to get my way around, but so much of what it is that I do, slash all that I do, is translate emotional states. Like I'm feeling a certain way, or my spirit is craving a certain thing, or I goes back to the translation of, it almost feels supernatural at times, where something is moving through me, and I'm just basing everything off of that building that inner world. Because my whole goal is never, with especially when it comes to making albums, but even with making, even on a song to song basis, I'm never trying to outdo myself or previous work. It's never a competition. Music is especially, it's not a competition in any way, but it's for sure not a competition with self, because I don't even know what it means to make something better. But what I always try to stay true to is, how do I just dictate and translate my inner world in that moment. And if I can do that, then I did everything. Because an idea is either effective or it's ineffective. And if it's effective, it's true. If it's ineffective, it's not true.
Oh wow! And how did your producer, Rodiet, is that how you pronounce it? McDonald Rodiet
It's pronounced Roddy
or Rowdy?
McDonald.
Oh, okay. How
Yeah.
that he that how did he help you like shape the songs? If he helped you at all in that process, or how was his input important to this record?
Rod is amazing. I love Rod to death. And one of the things I love most about him is his intuition and his ability to listen to what is a song saying. What's the core, what's the engine of the song, and how do we make that engine stronger, clearer, more effective. He's not trying to get under the hood and change anything that doesn't need changing. It's all about staying true to the idea. So when I'm writing, I have all the blueprints that I'm building at my house in Idaho, and a lot of the, because Rod and I co-produced this, and so a lot of the the synthesizer pads or guitar ideas, a lot of that stuff is recorded before I go to to Rod's studio in California. And then what Rod does is take take what's there, and help it feel and become even more alive, figure out what the creature is supposed to be, and help build it, and then figure out what gaps are missing on, like, okay, we have this idea which is fully functioning, but like we need to manipulate the drums, or we need, like, how do we take this thing and push it even further. So it really does feel like the perfect team where Rod and I complement each other in these ways that are exactly what the songs and these records need. I can't say enough good things about him. He's fantastic.
Nice. And I know this question maybe I it I'm gonna do it, but uh, that do you have like any song that you're most proud of with this record, or maybe not proud of, because I mean they'll come from you, and I bet that you're proud of all of them. But
Uh-huh.
was there a song that made you go through things that you were like kind of more like, oh god, thank god it's finished, I needed to for this feeling to get out through a song? Or
Yeah, that's such a good question. The last song I finished writing for the album was Neighborhood Scene, which is the intro track. So it's funny that the first song I wrote is the last song on the album, and the last song I wrote is the first song on the album. And Neighborhood Scene was one of those. And this goes back to just being guided by um the emotions and the inner and my sense of inner world. So much of that is just based on excitement too. And Neighborhood Scene, when I was building out the synth pads and some of the initial ideas, and even with the lyrics being based around um fairs and like small town underbelly America, which is my whole background is that. And there was something that just made it was so much fun to work on, and I was so excited when those ideas were coming out. So Neighborhood Scene is definitely one of my favorites. Same with Gumshoe, because Gumshoe really captured that spirit of how I feel about road trips. One of my
okay,
favorite things to do in music, or something that I always am trying to find, is there's something about a road trip that makes you feel um, so so in between realms. There's that perfect discomfort to a road trip because you're not at home, but then you have that sense of adventure, and everything feels like everything just feels like the great unknown, like the great mystery. And Gumshoe, working on that and combining it with my love for literature and building out, like my own folk tale in it, and combining that with my love for my family. That Gumshoe is one that's very very special to me.
okay. And last question here, what song are you most excited to play live?
Mm, maybe football, because that song was so hard to relearn how to play. I wrote the piano part for football with four hands essentially, because the high part, it sounds effortless, but it's because it's jumping between 2.5 octaves, so it's two hands playing, and then there's a low part that's two hands playing. And what I've had to do without changing the part at all is figure out how to play this four-handed part with two hands. And so when I got that down, I was like, holy shit, I did it. And so now I'm just excited to be able to perform it. But the whole set is gonna be it's really come together to be something magnificent, I feel.
Nice. I can't wait to hear it. And thank you very much for your time, Trevor. And thank you very much for the music. And I hope to see you in Mexico soon.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, man.